Hello all of you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I've got a very special video for you today, because if you're a fan of What Culture, be it the comics, the gaming section, the wrestling, the TV and film, my god, we've got a lot of channels. If you're a fan of any of our content, then you're used to seeing pretty creepy stuff on your screens each and every day. But today, I'm going to detail a few things that were never even meant to be captured, or were just so downright bizarre that they deserve some attention. So come with me down the rabbit hole. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 8 creepiest broadcasts ever caught on tape. Number 8, Swedish Rhapsody. So, if you suddenly start thinking to yourself, is the Swedish Rhapsody just Bohemian Rhapsody but sung in Swedish? No, it's actually weirder than that. Because you see, it was a powerful shortwave radio station that would use a music box version of the piece by the Swedish composer Hugo Alfvén as a kind of spooky ringtone. Transmissions begin with just a few bars of the spooky beyond all reason tune, followed by a seemingly random sequence of numbers being read out by what else? A creepy little girl. Just what you wanted, right? Some really strange numbers read out by a really horrifying source. In an example of a numbers station thought to be a Cold War era instrument of espionage, these stations are suspected to be a way of communicating with agents in the field. But rather than attempting to hide these numbers from transmission, anyone with a radio can actually pick these up. The thing is though, they just won't mean anything to you. Only the people from A to B communicating themselves. You're just in the middle just going like, what? Other examples of number stations like these include the Lincolnshire Poacher that features an electronic woman's voice, and Cherry Ripe, both so called because of the cheery folk music that accompanies them. And if you've wanted to, say, I don't know, never sleep again, you can actually listen to some of these broadcasts that have been captured over on YouTube. It's an experience. Number 7, Backwards Music Station. Now, this is a word of warning for any of those who start looking for this station. It doesn't actually play any music whatsoever. Instead, it's the kind of high-pitched screeching, grinding, and sort of guitar tuning sounds. And actually, the more I describe it, the more I think that it actually describes Sun OOOOOJ, or however you would pronounce that name. A noisecore band, if you don't know what that is. They're awful. I don't care if anyone says they're good. They're awful. They're absolute dog dick. It's also known as the Whale Song Station, as some people think that it sounds like the haunting melodies of a whale. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Now, the signal has been broadcasting intermittently for many years, occasionally firing up for a few rousing choruses of nightmarish whirling before going quiet for months or years at a time. The signal is thought to be coming from 2 different points, one in the US and one in the UK or mainland Europe. Now, theories have been flying about thick and fast as to what these transmissions might mean. Some think that, again, it's Cold War espionage. Other people just think that it's secret transmissions or a joke between 2 rival parties. And some, and this is legitimate, believe that it's the callings of Cthulhu himself. But there is actually another surprisingly reasonable explanation for the BMS, and that is that it's a backup network for the military, kept in case the usual channels of communications go down or are compromised. And the reason that they're fired up every now and again is to check that they're still in working order, hence the intermittent bursts of transmissions. Although when you've got Cthulhu on one hand, or just regular military transmissions, which one do you think the internet's going to choose? Number 6, the WOW signal. So back in 1977, Jerry Ehrman was a scientist that was working on the Big Ear radio telescope, just minding his own business, listening to the vast expanse of space above his station, when suddenly he received a rather interesting message. As he was scanning over the pages of 1s and 2s and 3s that the telescope reported, an unexpected sequence jumped out at him, 6EQUJ5, and so he circled and wrote WOW in the margin, which gave the signal its name. Now, the strong signal appeared to have come from a point within the constellation of Sagittarius, but when the scientists pointed their telescopes back at the same point, it had actually disappeared. So what could it have possibly have been? Now, to be clear, this code doesn't actually translate from alien to take us to your leader or anything like that. It just represents the strength of the signal that was hitting the exact radio telescope at that point in time. And when you consider that there's just 1s, 2s, and 3s, having this in there, well, that's definitely something. It turns out that the code was however, smack in the part of the radio spectrum that we would expect aliens to communicate on, and lasted for the full 72-second window that the telescope was looking at it, before disappearing, never to be seen again. So, could it be aliens, or could it be just some space junk that was interfering with the technology? Unfortunately, we'll possibly never know, but just on the off chance, scientists fired back at that exact point a ton of data packages containing a lot of human information, as well as likely just saying, hey, how's it going at the start of it? Because otherwise, if you just got bombarded with that, it'd be like a spam email. And I imagine that aliens probably wouldn't appreciate that. Still, yes, we sent a load of information their way, and maybe we'll get a return. Probably not in our lifetime, though. Number 5, UVB76. Now, if you do actually like your noisecore bands for whatever reason, I don't blame you, no judgment here, my friends, then you might get a kick out of The Buzzer, which is a Russian shortwave radio station that plays, well, nothing but buzzing. Also known as UVB76, it's been broadcasting for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week since 1982 at a rate of 25 buzz tones a minute. And the usual programming is occasionally interrupted by a mysterious voice and even the occasional song. Now, there are a few people out there that keep a close eye or indeed ear on The Buzzer in the hopes that someday they'll understand its meaning, or perhaps just in case anything kicks off. It's very, very weird when the buzzing stops and the talking starts though, because usually there's just a sequences of codes, but then creepily a list of names as well. Now, there are plenty of theories as to the actual purpose of the broadcast, and it's almost certainly of military origin, but in the 30-odd years since it began transmission, the true reason has never been confirmed. Number 4, Operation Wandering Soul. So most of the things that we've covered on this list so far are of unknown origin, but this one is definitely known, and it's, well, rather grim. Operation Wandering Soul is a completely different ballgame because, you see, there's a traditional belief in Vietnam that the dead must be buried in their homeland or else their spirit will not be able to rest. Now, this superstition was turned to the advantage of the American military in 1970 as a psychological tactic during the Vietnam War, because the recording is made up of a cacophony of ghostly moans, disjointed Vietnamese, eerie screeches, and traditional Buddhist funeral music. And it was blasted over loudspeakers that were mounted on light aircraft as they flew over remote Vietnamese villages. And as you can imagine, it was designed to unnerve the Vietnamese military because it was saying stuff like, my soul can't rest, I can't go home, I'm in hell, war is futile, resistance is futile. So yeah, it was grim to the extreme. The hope was that the locals and any lurking Viet Cong would believe that the ungodly sound was caused by the lost soul of dead Viet Cong members, and would follow the instructions to just give up the fight. And can you imagine that? The sounds of your dead allies coming through the jungle at you at night? That is utterly terrifying. Number 3, Clair de La Luna, 1860. Now, I don't know if we can actually play you a clip of this, but I feel like you really should listen to this, so I'll pause here just in case the editor will be able to splice that in. Sounds creepy, right? Kind of like a drowning child. Horrifying. But it's actually the earliest known recording of a human voice, because way back in 1860, Edouard Léon Scott de Martinville celebrated his rather fantastic name by having a little sing-song into his newly patented phonautograph. But here's the thing, the phonautograph, or the phonautograph, depending on how you want to pronounce it, was never designed to actually have the listener be able to play back what they've recorded. It simply worked by recording a visual representation of sound by tracing lines onto a revolving cylinder, and Scott probably never thought that his 10-second rendition of Au Clair de la Lune would ever be heard. However, on the rediscovery of the record, scientists at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory were able to recreate the sound that they represented digitally, finally releasing this little ditty from its papery prison a century and a half later. So yeah, even though it sounds creepy, it's actually meant to be a rather pleasant expression. It's, still definitely sounds creepy though. Number 2, the Sounds of Saturn. So if somebody were to ask you what you thought that space sounded like, your answer would probably actually end up coming to reflect the sounds of Saturn, which is actually the audio representation of the intense radio wave emissions given off by the planet. The radio frequencies emitted by Saturn are obviously well above human hearing, so these audio recordings that have been made for scientific purposes have been downshifted by a factor of 44, and the original 27-minute recording has been condensed to just 2 minutes. So while it's true that in space no one can hear you scream, somebody might be recording it with a telescope to then compress and then put up on YouTube. And number 1, the Max Headroom Incident. So considering that Max Headroom himself is, pretty extreme, it was hard to see how anyone was going to take that concept and push the envelope further. But we got it, and by God was it creepy. You see, in 1987, an unknown pirate hijacked the airwaves, interrupting 2 TV channels at a time, one showing the news and one showing an episode of Doctor Who. The first interruption was over the WGN 9 o'clock news and consisted of just video with distorted buzzing over the top. But the second hijack, well, that was accompanied by the ramblings of an utter madman. This broadcast showed a person wearing a Max Headroom mask and basically embarking on a 90-second romp through the bloody Twilight Zone. He dances around, utters phrases like he's a frickin' nerd and liberal, and oh my piles, before singing the theme to Clutch Cargo and then bending over to be spanked by an accomplice in a French maid's outfit. If any of that makes sense to you, please let me know, because I have no idea what I've just read out. Now this is the thing, nobody has any fresh hell of an idea of what any of this means. But one Reddit user in 2010 claimed to know who the original pirate was, but then was completely disproved. The best that we can hope for is that this was just somebody's warped idea of humour as opposed to something with any meaning. Because let's face it, the only thing creepier than this footage is if there were any dark intentions behind it. And there we go, my friends, those were the 8 creepiest broadcasts ever caught on tape. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, that's Dice with a C, where I do all of my streaming outside of work and all my Warhammer battle reports as well. As you can probably tell, I've got my painting table up there. Death Copters is the order of the day at the moment. Go Orcs. Yeah, if you want to chat me over there, then that's absolutely fine. Love to see you over there, my friends. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. I hope you're treating yourself well, both mentally and physically, my friend, because you deserve love, happiness, and success. And do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, alright? I want this broadcast to go out for all the right reasons. Not be creepy, but just be posy instead. Go out there with love in your hearts instead of hate, my friend. Trust me, you'll live a much healthier life if you do so. But yeah, that's it from me. I've been Jules. You've been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.